Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Friday, the 12th of August. Um, Picking up on something I was talking about yesterday about totalitarianism and truth being spoken and heard, I wanted to share with you some information I gleaned from my devotions on Tuesday the 9th from Common Prayer, a liturgy for ordinary radicals. I'm really enjoying this book. It's got readings for each day and a psalm, and it's a simplified way of saying the daily office. But every once in a while it pops in something that's happened on this day. And today, or August 9th, I should say, which is what I'm using, it has a little note about a gentleman named Franz Jägerstätter, who was born in 1907 and died in 1943. It says here that Franz Jägerstätter was a humble Catholic peasant born to a poor German farm maid in the small town of Rodegund, Upper Austria. He was baptized, married, and worked as a sexton in the same small parish. Though he was never part of any formal resistance groups, Franz was his village's sole conscientious objector to the annexation of Austria to Germany under Hitler. He felt deeply that his Christian faith could not permit him to fight in Hitler's army. Even under pressure by local priests and bishops to conform and serve in the military, Franz refused. He was imprisoned and beheaded for his refusal to serve in the Nazi army. First thing in the morning, it's about 7 o'clock in the morning when I read that on Tuesday. And that's like, whoa, okay, I'm awake now. But it really struck me because, again, this was the day after the search warrant had been issued and utilized on Mar-a-Lago for the former president. It comes on the heels of the last 2 weeks hearing about Christian nationalism. It came on the heels of me having watched just a couple of days ago a video that Reverend Ed Trevors put out, sharing the letter that was written and shared with churches in Germany and area, Bavaria maybe, just in the 1930s, encouraging people to step up and support Nazism because it would do that work, that incredible work of bringing about the kingdom that smacks an awful lot of what we're expecting God to have happen. We walk a fine line. We walk a fine line, I think, in our society, because there's a sense of excitement about being on the right side of history. The thing is about being on the right side of history is you won't know until history is done. Only after the fact. I imagine there were many, many people in Nazi Germany in the 30s who were excited about what was happening. Germany had been taken down more than just a peg or two after World War I. They were humiliated and made by the world to feel like they were less than. And so as a community, as a country, they were building themselves back up. They were learning how to become the German people again. They were discovering their historic pride. And we both, Canada and United States, we can recognize that. We celebrate things like Canada Day and July 4th, Independence Day. We shout, we fire off firecrackers and fireworks, and we sing patriotic songs. And in churches, we sing our national anthems. We sing "O Canada" and "God Save the Queen." We are not worshiping them. We are acknowledging the beauty that is our country, the beauty that is our history, when it has been done well, when we have been on the right side of history. And that has happened sometimes. There have been many times, and Canada in particular with our Indigenous brothers and sisters and siblings, we are recognizing that we're not on the right side of history for quite a bit of what we have always considered to have been the right side of history. So we're learning, and we're discovering our mistakes, and we're learning how we can ensure that never happens again. Right now, in Canada, I think we're doing okay. It's pretty quiet up here politically. South of the border, not so much. There's a lot of rhetoric. There's a lot of us versus them. There's a lot of verses. There's a lot of verses happening. people choosing sides, or people feeling like they must choose sides, families that won't speak to each other because one side believes that the former president did nothing wrong and the other side believes that he's an absolute scoundrel and deserves everything he might get. There are people who are fighting for healthcare, not necessarily change, but a recognition that everybody should be able to have appropriate healthcare and not have to choose between buying drugs or putting food on the table or a roof over your head. The idea that they had to fight for former soldiers, for veterans, to be able to get the help they need because of what had happened to them when they were serving and were using burn pits. It's embarrassing to think how difficult that task was, because people had decided to choose sides, to draw a line in the sand and say, this is the side I will be on, and history will prove that I am correct. That happened in Germany in the 30s. Lines were drawn in the sand. Charismatic leaders stood up. They spoke out of a truth that spoke to the needs and the hurt of the people, but did not actually speak to the true needs or the true future the people needed. What was happening in Germany was the speaking of a prophetic mind for a dystopic future. A voice who stood up and captured the people's imagination and told them, we will make Germany great again. We are the chosen ones. We are the ones who should stand in power over the rest of the world to show who we are and what we can offer and why we are correct. Does that sound familiar? Does it sound an awful lot like January 6th? Does it sound an awful lot like transport trailers and trucks honking their horns 24 hours a day in front of the Parliament buildings in Ottawa in the dead of winter? There are not a lot of people who are called upon to give up their lives. Not in these days, anyway. There are not a lot of people who are called upon to be persecuted and to be harassed and to be pushed to the limit because they stand up and say, I think the emperor has no clothes. I think your doctrine and your dogma are wrong. I think that what you are saying is incorrect. Even though I am the only voice saying it in the shouts of make your country great again. Franz Jägerstätter did not stand up and shout. He did not stand up and complain that Hitler was wrong and Nazism was wrong. He did not go out of his way to be a resistor. He did not do anything but say that he refused to join the military. And he was imprisoned and he was beheaded. Not in 1243, not in 1543, not even in 1843. This happened in 1943, not even 80 years ago. 79 years ago, a man was beheaded because he refused to join a military who stood for a doctrine he could not agree to. How close are we getting? How close are we getting to be living in a societies around this world that say, if you are not for us, you are against us. And if you are against us, we will behead you. "79 years ago, this past Tuesday, a young man, 36 years old, was beheaded because he simply refused to fall in line with what his government was telling him to do. What happens if we don't use our heads? What happens if we don't use common sense? What happens to our world and our children if we don't have the courage to say, enough is enough? Every person, regardless of whether you are a Christian or a believer or anything else, we all need to recognize the importance of humanity. That if you can agree that your life, your ability to breathe and to eat and to have the necessary medical things that you need and a roof over your head, a good education, if you can agree that you deserve that and so do your children, how dare you suggest that somebody else doesn't, simply because they don't agree with your politics, your religion? If you can agree that those are things that are important for you, what right do you have to say they are not important for someone else? It is important that wherever we live, in whatever part of the world, we stand up and state what is true. What is true is that we are important. Each person has the right to live and breathe and be educated and have food to eat and medicines if they need it, a roof over their heads. We're not talking about everyone making $1 million. We're talking about everybody having the basic things they need for existence. It doesn't matter if you are conservative or liberal or New Democrat, or if you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, or even a Christian nationalist. We are all created so similarly that we shouldn't be drawing lines in the sand. But my fear is if we don't stand up and stop drawing those lines, if we don't stand up and start blurring those lines every time someone draws a line, we got to come back in that sand and mess it all up and eliminate those lines. Because if we don't, we will become 1930s Germany. And there will be more Franz Jägerstätters, 46 years old, who are being beheaded because they disagreed with the leader of their country. It's not that far removed, and it's not that far away that we can say it will never happen again. The only way we can ensure that it does not happen again is if every one of us steps up and says, I won't let it happen again. We need to stand up for all the Franz Jägerstätters of the world that we can save. We might be one of them. Just something to think about. And on that happy note, I am taking some holiday time. My parents are coming to visit Rob and I on Sunday, and they're going to be here for a week, and then I have another week of holidays. So I will be back on Wednesday the 31st for Church at Home. I'm going to take 2 weeks off, just over 2 weeks off. There will be a church gospel on the go this coming Sunday, the 14th of August, and it will come back the first Sunday in September. So I think the September 3rd, I think it is. But please hang in there. Don't disappear on me. I'm just taking a bit of a break. And I hope that you have a good 2 weeks. I hope that you give me lots of ideas, lots of comments, give me ideas of things to talk about when I come back. And in the meantime, don't be surprised if there might be an extra vlog comes up just because I keep watching the news and seeing what's happening. But in the meantime, I am going to try to take some holidays. And thank you so much for your encouragements and your comments and your friendship and just for being you. I am really, really pleased that we can do this together. God bless you, and I will see you in a couple of weeks.